Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here at my next Legend of Korra Book 4 Balance episode review. This one's going to be for K404, The Calling. And yeah, this is like my fifth time trying to record this video review. My camera's been acting up a bit, so I've had to basically, I've probably recorded like 40 minutes of footage already, like 2 full reviews, and it still hasn't recorded yet. So hopefully this time works. But yeah, overall I thought this was a really good episode. I like that it focused on just two plots, that being the Air Kids and then the Korra and Toph stuff. I really like that, in that last episode focused on a little bit of everything, except maybe like any focus really on Asami, even though she was in the episode. But that was needed. But this one just focuses on what it needed to, and made for just a very solid kind of story that it told. Air Kids search for Korra. They eventually find her, and Korra makes that big step forward in her recovery, finally reconnecting with her spiritual side, and I think getting past a lot of her kind of inner demons about the past villains that she's faced. So, very impressed with the episode. And one of the main things that impressed me about the episode was, going into some specifics now, the Air Kid side of the story, because they're all characters who need more screen time, need character development. Jinora of the three definitely has had the most so far, but primarily that's been in the sense of, she's got new abilities, she's had big moments in book 2 and 3, but her personality maybe hasn't come through as strong as it maybe should have been given the magnitude of these moments. But this episode does a reasonably good job at showing us all of their personalities, and who I was most impressed with in the episode was Iki, actually. Of the three, she definitely has had the least amount of character development and screen time of all of the characters, especially in terms of like lines of dialogue she's delivered. Really, only one of the Civil Wars episodes, the one that focused on her and the baby Bison and Tenzin, has been the only episode that I would say has really developed her character in any way. In that episode focused on her dealing with her problems with her siblings, leaving her out a little bit. This episode continues that on a little bit and deals with that too, but you can tell that he's matured a little bit. But what I really liked was that in this episode, she gets annoyed at Milo. She ends up getting captured by the two Earth Kingdom soldiers, or Earth Empire soldiers. And what happens is, initially these two soldiers plan to use this girl because she says that she's Tenzin's daughter. They want to use her to basically send her to Kavira and get a promotion and just advance themselves using Iki. But what ends up happening is that even though she's tied up, she basically ends up getting information out of them. And she ends up creating a situation for herself where she's not at any risk at all. Where she makes these two soldiers feel sympathy for her, she actively feels sympathy for them, and it's just really a really good way of using her personality, and it gets across what her base character is, and that she's a super bubbly girl who is very nice, not really mean at all, really understands people's feelings. I think she really got that. She got that they felt alone, they were annoyed at the fact that they were in this place on their own, and she used that to her advantage here, and it was a very clever way to use her character and present her probably the most seriously, I suppose, we've got so far for her. And it was, in many ways, she played like the most important role in finding Korra, in that she got the lead on she may be in the swamp, because that's the only place that the Earth Empire doesn't have lookouts, basically, in the Earth Kingdom. And that was a really clever point as well, and that she realised that, she put that together in her mind, that if they've got people everywhere looking for Korra and they haven't found her, then it's kind of obvious that the one place she'd go to would be the swamp, where there are no soldiers. And they also kind of put it together that, like, maybe if she's hurt, she'd go there because it's spiritual. So that was very clever, and just overall, I really appreciated that Iki got some good character development in this episode. And her, I wouldn't say she was manipulative in this episode. I think honestly she just kind of came across so nicely to those guys that they kind of opened up to her, and at the end of the day they were super friendly towards her at the end and actively helping her, and that's a really strong kind of character to have, in that, you know, she doesn't always need to fight people and like fight her way out. She can just, you know, disarm a situation just by talking to people. And she did even more than that. She didn't just stop them being maybe aggressive towards her. She actively got them helping her. She was tied up, and I think by the end of the episode, they let her out and were like showing a map to her and trying to help her find Korra. And that's a huge thing for her character. But yeah, very impressed with that. Milo, uh, while I don't think he got any like massive kind of character focus in this episode, there were some nice moments, like the moment where he met that girl who I think she said her name was like Tuan, and she gave him the flower because she was kind of impressed with his big talking. And mainly that's what you got from this episode, was that he's at that age where he sort of thinks super highly of himself. He thinks he's the best. He thinks he can do anything. He gets this idea into his head that they're going off on their first solo mission and they're going to hunt for food and stuff like that. But he doesn't realize that we're vegetarians. We don't eat meat. And then when he actually goes searching for berries, all he finds are kind of poisonous berries. So that I don't know if they're poisonous, but you know, they obviously aren't good to eat and make him sick. And that was just a funny moment for him and Pokey, which Pokey, it was nice to see him again, not they didn't forget about him. Him and Pokey just getting sick and realizing that, okay, he's not as good as we think he is. So they just presented him as like, you know, he's a good fighter, a good member of the group, but he's at that age where he's just kind of doing crazy stuff and he's annoying the other girls. And he annoys Iki enough that she runs off and leads to her getting captured, which they kind of praise him for at the end, like that's his big thing he did. But he did also he was the first one to spot the picture of Korra at the fish place that Korra visited in Korra Alone. So he also found one of the first leads to finding Korra, so that was cool. Yeah, and also he had that moment with Toph at the end where he was the one to kind of speak to her first, and he's like, "Wait, you're an old lady. He's like, you're cranky and you're tough. You must be tough." And she's like, "I like this kid. He knows exactly who I am." So that was nice to see. Then Janora, I think she definitely came across as the most mature member of the group. She's obviously the oldest, and what I liked here was that she was very clear about, you know, like we're meant to do this together as a family, and the other two of them were kind of acting up a little bit and making it kind of more kind of solo, you know, trying to outdo each other. While she just focused on what she needed to do. Now she needed to meditate at nearly every occasion to try and find Korra, and you know the other two were getting frustrated with her because they thought she was kind of using the fact that she's a master airbender like against them, and she's doing this. She thinks she's so important, but I don't think she really was. Maybe she was a bit over reliant on her connection to Korra, and that's all she wanted to do. And they did have the point where she kind of agreed with Milo to not go into the swamp, while Iki wanted to go there towards the end. But I think overall she kind of came across fairly well in the episode, and that when they actually got to the swamp, she was the one who did sense Korra's spiritual connection when she touched the banyan tree and tried to sense what was happening. So that was pretty cool, and just overall the kids on their first solo mission together, you know, they succeeded. They found Korra. They in a way helped her, you know, finish her healing, and now they're bringing her back into the world, and they should be able to help. She should be able to help out. So they succeeded in their mission, and that was a cool thing for them to do. But I think the big accomplishment from this side of the story was that they all got a little bit more character development. I do hope this isn't their only involvement in the book. I do really hope that. I hope it's not, okay, we've given them like nearly a full episode to themselves, we don't need to focus on them anymore. I think Janora is big enough of a character now that she should be in more episodes. And I would like to see all three of these characters fight again, together. Because obviously it's been book one since we really seen all of them fight. So it would be really cool to get to see them fight in a big battle as well, because they are older. I think Janora's obviously a master airbender. It'd be great to see how amazing she is in a full-on fight, because as much as she has all these spiritual powers and that's mainly what she gets her mastery for, we haven't seen her fight all that much, and I'd like to see that happen. Milo, I think, is already set up as like an amazing fighter, and I'd like to see more of his unique style. And then Iki as well. We don't know much about her in terms of her fighting skills, so that'd be cool to see. If she maybe uses her personality in the fight to get people to kind of like, you wouldn't hit a girl unless she does some amazing move or something like that. So I hope that happens. And I kind of suspect it will, just because they succeeded in their mission, they're capable. Let's involve them in things going forward. The other side of the story is Toph and Korra, and I was pretty impressed with this as well, because my kind of prediction was that Toph would kind of be in the sidelines of this episode. It would focus on Korra. She would go into the swamp, she'd have this calling, this vision, and she'd solve most of the stuff herself. And then Toph would kind of come out at the end, kind of like applauding what Korra has just done. And she'd kind of reveal that, yeah, I kind of set this up, I sent you out here. And in a way, that kind of happened, because she sent her out on this mission to get mushrooms. But really, what she sent her out to do was, she kind of had a feeling that Korra would experience some sort of a vision. So I like that they kind of have presented that Toph doesn't want to just be that super helpful mentor kind of character like an Iroh or something like that. She wants Korra to kind of do a lot of it herself, So she kind of has to kind of trick her into these situations, because Toph doesn't want to come across as just being super helpful. So, she sends her out on this mission to get mushrooms, but knows that she'll get a vision somewhere. And then when Korra has the vision, she then kind of helps her by explaining some of the stuff that she thinks is the problem. And it's there that you really see how much Toph has grown as a character, and that she is quite spiritual, she is quite enlightened, and she understands kind of some stuff that the way she described the situation to Korra about the visions and how she's holding on to them like the metal, and that's her problem. I don't think Toph from Avatar The Last Airbender would have been able to do something like that. So you can clearly see the growth in Toph as a character here. But at the same time, she doesn't want to be that super helpful character. And wants Korra to do much of it herself. But Korra's vision itself, I thought was really well done. Just the idea that they showed her all the moments in the past 3 books where she was hurt, injured, and kind of damaged by all of these villains, and that she's carrying this like pain, anguish of all of these around with her constantly. And there's that kind of symbolism between the feelings of these memories of these villains that she has, and the metal inside her, that they kind of represent one another, that she won't be able to basically let go of the metal until she lets go of basically the memories of these battles that she still thinks are hurting her. And that was a really kind of deep way to kind of touch on it, that just the idea that Toph wants Korra to just let go. Those battles are in the past, they're over, you've defeated all of these guys, there's no reason to remember them anymore. As much as you got hurt during these battles, you did end up defeating all of them. And you defeated these people with the help of your friends, which you have now distanced yourself from. And it just dealt with a lot of these issues, and I thought it was very kind of wise from Toph to point all this out to Korra. Just the visions, like her having memories of getting her bending taken away by Amon, having Rava ripped out of her by Unavatu, and then the past avatars destroyed, and then the poisoning / nearly killing her by Zahir. And then you just have to remember, she beat all of these people. She doesn't have to deal with these people anymore. Amon is dead. Unalaq is dead. Vatu won't be back for another 10,000 or 9,997 years. So she won't have to deal with him in her lifetime. Zahir's in prison, and the other Red Lotus members are dead. She doesn't have to deal with these people anymore, but she's keeping them alive within herself because of the pain that they caused her. And that was a deep way to look at it. And again, I really appreciated that symbolism, that's what's keeping the metal inside her. The way then Toph brought Korra to the banyan tree, and then she made her first spiritual connection there, using the fact that she touched the ground like Aang did, sensed everything in the swamp, and saw Jinora and Co there. And that was a really strong moment in the episode as well. That moment where they both sense each other's presence. The Air Kids are delighted that Korra is nearby, and Korra, for the first time, is delighted that other people that she knows are nearby. And Toph points this out to her that, you've also separated yourself, distanced yourself from the people around you, the people who love you, and that shouldn't be the case anymore. And so, for the first time, if this was Korra from Korra alone, Korra would have probably ran away from Jinora and not wanted to meet her because of the way she feels about the situation she's in. But this time, she actively is excited about them being there, and when they arrive, she's actually crying. She's so happy to meet them. That was a really strong moment, and the way they all run up and hug her, and they have that group hug moment, and it just showcases one of those underrated relationships in the show, and that is Korra's relationship with the Air Kids. Even back as far as first episode of the show, they were hugging her and they really liked her, and you could see the connection that they all had. And so them being the first character that she kind of met was a really clever way to do it. They succeeded in their mission, they found Korra, and she's accepting them, and she's going to return back to being in the world. And then you get that moment where the Air Kids, Korra has to introduce the Air Kids to Toph, because she's clearly never met them, though I assume she knows they exist, that Aang has grandkids, but she's never met them before. And so it was just this cool idea of all these kind of generations coming together, the Avatar after Aang introducing Aang's grandkids to one of Aang's friends who hasn't met them before. It was just a really cool moment where they all met Toph for the first time, and as I said, you had that moment between Milo and Toph, which was quite good. It's just a really good moment. And then one of the final scenes of the episode is obviously Korra taking the metal out of herself, and that was again another really strong scene in the episode, because you had her try and do it herself. She kind of thinks Toph's going to do it now that she's kind of solved the more kind of mental side of things, but no, Toph still says you have to do this, and so she tries. And I kind of liked how it was an emotional scene, but the technique that she was using, the way she was doing the metal bending, was kind of beautiful in the movements to get it out of herself. And then she almost thinks she's going to stop again, she's going to resist it like she did with Toph, but then Toph kind of calms her down by saying it's over, those fights are over, let go of it. And she finally gets it out, and Su Yin got the metal out through her mouth, but Korra here literally takes it out of her arms, it comes through her skin as it was put into her. So it must have been really painful for Korra to do this, but she eventually did it. And then when she did it, immediately Avatar state kind of eyes come on that she's now reconnected to the Rava, basically spiritual side of herself. And Mila says the line, the Avatar is back, and she's ready to take on the world. And that was just, again, a strong moment. So yeah, Jinora and the Air Kids are obviously taking Korra back. I'm not really sure where exactly they're going to go from here. They during the episode they did tell her about Kuvira and that the world needs her. She was a little bit unsure, but obviously this happened before she kind of healed herself fully. So I think we know from the trailers that Korra confronts Kuvira in her Earth Kingdom clothing. She doesn't change into the blue outfit just yet, so I'm not sure when that's going to happen, what other things are going to happen before then. But still, it's just it's a big moment in the series that Korra is now back to being the Avatar. Maybe there's still a little bit more to go. Maybe she's she says that she feels lighter already, just the fact that she doesn't have the metal in her, she feels stronger. Maybe she still will have some training to do to kind of readapt to, being at full power again, maybe readapt to using the Avatar state, and so on. But it seems like she's nearly fully healed now, and that's really positive. And it's been a great journey for these first 4 episodes, to see her go from where she was at the end of episode 1 to see her here. It's just very, very well done. Final thing I want to talk about is just We do get a little bit of plot in this episode actually as well. The Earth Kingdom guards that are looking after Iki, they do mention to themselves basically that Zhaofu is the only place left in the Earth Kingdom that hasn't pledged loyalty to Kavira. So it's the only place left that's not considered part of the Earth Empire just yet. So that's a clear setup that that's where things are going next, I think. And I like that they had set up for the plot, even in this episode that was more character focused than plot focused. That they still touched on the other stuff happening. And I think that's where the train that Kuvira's on is heading to Zhaofu. Maybe we'll see the setup for some sort of a battle next, because Zhaofu doesn't look like it's the sort of place that needs aid from Kuvira. So how can she spin it in a way that she's helping Zhaofu by making it part of the Earth Empire, when from what we know of Zhaofu, it's fairly self-sufficient. You'd barely consider it part of the Earth Kingdom. It's almost like a nation of its own. So unless Kuvira and Batar in leaving have basically taken a lot of the resources from the place and it's not the same as it was, or is she going to do something to make it require aid and then attack it? I'm not really sure. It's going to create an interesting political situation. And I think Bolin, this could be a turning point for him when he realizes that, wait, why do we need to take over this place? They don't need our help. They don't need humanitarian aid. And maybe then Bolin will see that Kuvira really is only out for power and wanting to be the kind of empress of the whole Earth Kingdom, and that she doesn't actually care so much about humanitarian aid. Maybe that'll be a big moment there. But yeah, overall, this was a pretty strong episode. A really character-focused episode, as I said, rather than plot. But it was a much-needed one because, in many ways, the big plot of this season so far has been Korra's recovery. And so dealing with that so heavily has been a huge bonus, I suppose, at the start of this book. The Air Kids getting good time on screen was great to see, and especially for me, like the highlight of this episode was just seeing Iki deal with these two Earth Empire guards and how her personality just diffused the situation completely from what it was initially, and eventually had them helping her. And she was even friendly enough to give them some of the food when they were knocked out and like apologize for what her brother and sister did. Really just good episode. But yeah, definitely in the comments let me know what your thoughts are on this episode. And also check out the Avatar Online podcast Core Roundtable for The Calling, which we're going to be recording on Sunday. And I'll have a speculation video for episode 5 during the week. But yeah, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.